Do you remember the look your parents gave you? The one that did not need words. The one that froze you in place, silenced you instantly, and told you everything you needed to know, right there in the middle of the grocery store? No yelling, no discussion, just a look. And somehow, you knew your life depended on obeying it. If you grew up in the 1970s, none of this felt strange. It was not cruel. It was not shocking. It was simply how families worked. But if those same rules were enforced today, people would call it abusive. Schools would file reports. Social media would explode. And that is not exaggeration. That is reality. So let's take a walk back through the 1970s, through the everyday family rules that millions of Americans grew up with, rules that were considered normal, necessary, even loving at the time. And by the end, you may feel something unexpected, not anger, not resentment, but a deep, complicated mix of nostalgia, disbelief, and quiet understanding. Number 1. Because I said so was a complete explanation. In the 1970s, parents did not negotiate. They did not explain every decision. They did not invite debate. They did not care if you agreed. Rules were rules. If you asked why you had to do something, you were often told, "Because I said so." And that was the end of the conversation. No emotional validation. No long discussions about feelings. No concern about how it made you feel. Today, parenting books emphasize communication and reasoning. In the 1970s, obedience came first. And somehow, kids understood their place in the family hierarchy without a single chart or therapy session. Physical discipline was expected, not questioned. Spanking wasn't controversial. It was routine. Paddles hung in classrooms. Belts were kept close at home. Even a wooden spoon could strike fear into the bravest child. And it wasn't done in secret. Parents talked about it openly. Teachers threatened it publicly. Neighbors didn't interfere. If you misbehaved, you expected consequences, and they were often physical. Today, that same discipline would be reported as abuse. Back then, it was considered responsible parenting. And here's the part that's hard to explain to younger generations. Most kids didn't see their parents as monsters. They saw them as authority figures doing what they believed was right. Number 3. Adults were always right, even when they were wrong. In the 1970s, children didn't correct adults, ever. If a parent misunderstood something, you stayed quiet. If a teacher made a mistake, you accepted it. If an adult accused you of something, your word meant nothing. Adults were believed. Kids were not. Today, children are encouraged to speak up, to advocate for themselves, to question authority. But in the 1970s, questioning an adult wasn't empowerment. It was disrespect, and disrespect had consequences. Number 4. Privacy was a privilege, not a right. Bedrooms were not private spaces. Parents could walk in at any time. Drawers could be opened. Bags could be searched. Your thoughts, your belongings, even your diary. Nothing truly belonged to you. If you complained, you were reminded, "This is my house." And that was that. Today, invading a child's privacy is often discouraged. In the 1970s, it was considered good parenting, staying informed, staying in control. 5. Children were expected to be seen, not heard. Kids did not interrupt adult conversations. They did not express opinions at the dinner table. They did not talk back. They did not share feelings. You waited your turn, or you stayed quiet altogether. If adults were talking, you listened, silently. Today, family discussions often include children's perspectives. In the 1970s, children existed on the sidelines of adult life, and no one thought that was harmful. 6. Crying didn't earn comfort, it earned consequences. Crying was not always met with sympathy. In many homes, crying meant you were weak, or manipulative, or trying to get out of trouble. You were told to stop, to toughen up, to give you something to cry about, especially for boys. Emotion was something you controlled or paid for. Today, emotional validation is emphasized. In the 1970s, emotional restraint was survival. Many kids learned early how to swallow feelings because no one wanted to hear them. 7. Embarrassment was used as discipline. Parents didn't worry about humiliating you in public. If you acted up in a store, you were corrected on the spot, loudly, in front of strangers, sometimes with words, sometimes with a firm grip on your arm, sometimes with a promise of what would happen when you got home. Today, public shaming of children is often criticized. In the 1970s, embarrassment was seen as a teaching tool. You learned fast when everyone was watching. 8. Children were expected to earn their place. Love existed, but it wasn't always unconditional. You earned praise through obedience, chores, and good behavior. You lost approval when you stepped out of line. Affection wasn't freely given. It was connected to performance. Today, we talk about unconditional love. In the 1970s, love was often implied, not expressed. Parents didn't say, "I love you" every day, but they expected gratitude anyway. Fear was considered an effective motivator. Parents were not afraid of being feared. In fact, many believed fear kept kids safe. Fear of punishment, fear of disappointing authority, fear of consequences. Today, parenting advice warns against fear-based discipline. But in the 1970s, fear was part of respect, and respect was everything. Number 10. Kids were responsible for adult-level tasks. Children weren't just kids, they were helpers. You cooked, you cleaned, you watched younger siblings. You handled responsibilities well beyond your age. And if you failed, you were punished, not comforted. Today we call it parentification. In the 1970s, it was called growing up. Families relied on kids, and kids were expected to deliver. 11. Mental health was not discussed. Anxiety didn't exist. Depression was laziness. Trauma was weakness. You didn't talk about your feelings. You dealt with them. Or you didn't. Therapy was rare. Emotional language was limited. If you were struggling, you were told to push through. Today, mental health is openly discussed. Back then, silence was the solution. 12. Threats were used freely and seriously. If you don't stop, wait until your father gets home. That sentence alone could end all behavior instantly. Parents used fear strategically, and kids believed them. There was no debate about whether the threat would be carried out. It usually was. Today, threatening children is discouraged. In the 1970s, it was a daily tool. Apologies from parents were rare. Parents did not apologize to children. Ever. Admitting fault was seen as undermining parental authority. Authority had to be absolute. Today, parents are encouraged to model accountability. In the 1970s, parents maintained control, even when they were wrong, and kids learned to accept it. 14. Love was shown through provision, not affection. You were fed, you were clothed, you had a roof over your head. That was love. Hugs were occasional. Praise was limited. Emotional closeness was rare. Parents believed providing was enough. And in fairness, they worked hard to do it. But affection was not prioritized. 15. Kids were expected to just deal with it. Bullying, ignore it. Unfair treatment, toughen up. Fear, get over it. There was no system to protect kids emotionally. You survived or you learned to hide. Today, that expectation would be labeled neglectful. Back then, it was reality. And now, here is where everything tightens. Because despite all of this, despite rules that would now be labeled abusive, millions of kids grew up and built lives. They became parents, workers, leaders, caregivers. Not because everything was right, but because they adapted. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Two things can exist at the same time. Some of those rules caused real harm, and some of those rules created resilience. The 1970s were not perfect. They were not gentle, and they were not always fair. But they were normal. No one questioned them. No one thought history would judge them. And now, decades later, we look back with modern eyes and realize how drastically the definition of good parenting has changed. So the real question is not whether those rules were right or wrong. The real question is this: what rules are we enforcing today? Rules we think are loving and necessary, that future generations will look back on in shock? Because one day, someone will say, "Can you believe they did that to kids?" And just like now, we will not have realized it at the time. That is the part that lingers. That is the part that stays with you. And that, more than anything, is what makes the past so powerful.